Okay, hello everyone. This is going to be the first part of a video series where I talk about self-studying physics and how one might go about constructing a plan to self-study physics and some of the things you need to keep in mind and potentially um, sort of go through to actually learn physics. So about a little bit about my background. I When I learned physics, I did not self-study it. I did physics in university, but I have studied physics on my own and learned additional topics that I didn't do in university. So I do have some background here, and I have some idea of what university physics education is like and the topics you really need to cover. Um, So this first video is just going to be sort of introducing some of these concepts. I'm going to talk about why you might want to study physics and some things to keep in mind. And the next video we'll be going through sort of where to start, and we'll go on from there. So firstly, in terms of why you might be interested in studying physics, um, well, presumably if you clicked on this video, you already are, but if you're not or you feel uncertain about, whether it's good to make that type of time commitment, I think what I would tell you is that while physics is challenging, it's a difficult subject, right? It's really, really hard. It's also very rewarding, and it's a sort of major area of human inquiry, if you like. Um, so if you're an intellectually interested person and you enjoy learning things, it's a very deep, rich area that is very important to our modern society and lots of modern technologies. I think physics as a subject also requires you to think deeply and to learn how to analyze and solve problems because, again, physics problems are quite challenging. Um, and so it'll work on your logic, your problem solving ability, your ability to think through things and analyze things deeply. I think all of those are pretty good reasons to want to learn physics. And also, it's just really fun and really interesting. So, only do this if you're prepared to, commit to it and you're really quite interested in it. And then just a few things to keep in mind. I think um, the first thing I would mention is that, as with this series, this is meant to be something that an average person could realistically do. Um, and so, if you study every day, let's say you study an hour a day, you could make reasonable progress doing this. Um, that being said, if you cover, let's say, everything in an undergraduate physics degree, an undergraduate degree might take you, depending on the country you're in, 3 or 4 years to complete. Uh, so, and that's assuming you study full time. So if you're doing this yourself and you're not studying as a full-time student, it's going to take you longer than that. So the first thing to keep in mind is that depending on how much you want to study and what level you want to get to, this is going to be a very big time commitment. Um, and then the second part I wanted you to maybe keep in mind is that physics is, of course, a science, right? So there is an experimental part of physics and a practical part. However, you know, for an average person who doesn't happen to have a physics lab in their house, the experimental side of things is going to be difficult to do because, well, like I said, most people don't have a physics lab in their house, and it's also quite, you know, it's not really achievable for us to build one. It's expensive to buy all that specialized equipment. Maybe you could buy some stuff if you're really interested in it, but for the purpose of this series of videos, I'm going to be focusing on theoretical physics and studying from a textbook, basically. And I kind of want to cover most of the important areas that you'd find in most undergraduate physics curricula. Because once you get through those important topics, then you can kind of branch out into different areas that interest you, because you have a broad, good foundation. And speaking of that foundation, um, while this is a self-study physics playlist, it may also be a self-study mathematics playlist, because maths is very important for your studies in physics. So again, while the focus is mainly on physics, the maths is really foundational, and it's going to help you learn physics. And so while you're studying this, I'm going to give you recommendations about the maths you need to learn, and don't skimp on that. The maths is as important as the physics, if not more important, because if you don't understand it and you don't understand how to apply it, you're going to get stuck on the physics. The maths needs to be second nature by the time um, you get to the physics. So this is a very short video, but if what I've said interests you and it sounds like something you'd be interested in and want to know about, um, please consider liking and subscribing and following this series of videos. Thanks for watching.